This is the Tabernacle podcast, normally with Britton Bishop and me, John Vermilia. But Britton is gone again. Britton is working hard. As we're recording this podcast, Britton is up at the Tab Students Camp with an army from both the Buckley and Manistee campus. So Britton's not here, and that also means our normal producer, Benji Vermilia, is not here. But sitting in for him is his boss, the executive producer, Matt Hughes. And we have a very special guest. I'm super fired up. We've planned this for months and months. We have with us all the way from the great white frozen tundra of the UP from Powers, Michigan, Dean Hulce, who is the president, the founder, the director, the all things of high impact outdoors. The man is a hunter. He's from a family of hunters. His wife has shot bigger and better things than I've even seen in my life. And his ministry is also a partner ministry of the Tabernacle. So, Dean, welcome to the Tab podcast. It's been a year trying to get you here.
It has been. And it's not that far of a drive. If I could swim, it'd be a lot closer.
It'd be a lot closer.
If I could swim well. But I appreciate being here.
How long of a drive was it from Powers?
Well, normally it's about 5 hours, but it took us 2 hours to get across the bridge.
Really?
Yeah, Mackinac Bridge. There was some construction just on the south end, and it took us 2 hours to get across. So we get back on track. It was 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. So yeah, so you live in the land of Narnia, as I'd like to say. And you're here in the land of the trolls.
The trolls.
Yeah, because we live under the bridge. If you're not from Michigan, you won't get that.
It's all Detroit. It's all Detroit to me. You get south of the bridge, it's all Detroit.
Well, Powers, you're so far north and far west, you're not even a Detroit Lions fan. You've made that very clear.
I'm only 100 miles from Green Bay.
Yeah.
Not only am I 100 miles away, if you had a choice of one or the other, who would you be rooting for?
Oh, so you're...
It's not soccer, but it's still football.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's still football. So you're a Packers man. You're a cheesehead. You're a cheesehead. Well, Dean, we've wanted to have you on here for a while because you've been a partner with our church. You've spoken at you were the speaker at our very first Wild Game Dinner. We were having those on an annual basis before COVID hit. Mm-hmm. That's where I first met you. And then with your ministry, which is based in Powers now, I've had the privilege to be up at your camp, and along with the legend Matt Stevens, he first got us involved there, and have had the privilege to hunt there and hunted there with my son. You know, Ben went up there as well with his son, and
your daughter,
and my daughter Sophie.
That's right.
Yeah, so Sophie went up during the man camp because she wasn't afraid. Yeah.
And she fit in perfect.
Yeah, but your ministry is intriguing for us, and it's exciting for us because it involves one of the loves, one of the passions of many people that listen to this podcast that are part of our church, both campuses, and that's the outdoors. Yeah. And you don't love the outdoors at all, do you?
We're in Michigan. We gotta love the outdoors.
You gotta,
especially in the UP.
Yeah.
I was raised. I was born and raised in hunting camp. We went every weekend to hunting camp. You know, my dad loved the outdoors and actually taught us a lot about God through the outdoors as we spent time in the woods and at camp. And you've been at camp, and our camp is more. To me, camp is more important than the hunting. You know, that's hunting to me, and that's so I've been doing it since I was old enough. I've got great memories of walking behind my dad when there were times if he wanted to show me something, he had to put me on his shoulders because I was too small to see over a ridge or whatever.
Really?
So it's been my whole life.
So let's go there. So exactly where were you born? Were you born into a Christian family?
I was born in Iron Mountain, Kingsford, in the UP, and my wife was actually born 10 days after me. Her mother was in the same room my mother had been in. So Linda and I were both born. Got to know each other at 8 years old and been married 42 years ever since then. But
since you were 8, you got married at 8?
Yeah.
Come on, I got to give you a hard time.
Been married 42 years, so it's about 8 years. So,
yeah.
So anyhow, no, I was born and raised in Iron Mountain, Kingsford area, and I was brought into a great Christian family. My parents loved the Lord. My dad was both my parents, taught Sunday school, and I can't say I've always been perfect since that time, but I came to Christ at a very young age, 5 years old. I remember sitting on the bed with my dad to this day, and that's 55 years ago, and him explaining to me at 5 years old as much as I could understand salvation, but I can remember it to this day, and he's been gone 10 years, but and I've obviously reaffirmed that, and as I got older, understood it more, but So yeah, so I've and Linda and I've been in church together. We got married at 18, as much as we thought we could, and so we still, like I said, it'll be 42 years in September.
So Britton's not here, but he's going to kill me if I don't ask this question because he asks every question. We gotta go back a second because you were before the podcast. You were saying the difference between talking and writing is you don't have a backspace.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to backspace on you right here. Britton always likes to ask what is your earliest memory? Like, what's the first thing you remember? Was it that moment on the bed with your dad?
I think it probably was, believe it or not. Yeah. I can remember my earliest outdoor memory as well, but both of them were with my dad.
Yeah.
And but I think my earliest memory that I could recall clearly was the day that I accepted Christ at 5 years old.
What was the outdoor memory?
My dad and my brother and I. My brother was my brother Dave, who you've met.
The legend. Yeah, Dave.
Oh, he hates it when you say that kind of stuff.
Really? Yeah. Oh, he's a legend. Man, a few words.
Very few words compared to me.
I'm still a little afraid of him. Yeah.
No. He's a bit teddy bear.
Yeah.
And but he's half my size too.
Yeah.
So,
but he's a legend.
But he and my dad, and Dave's 7 years older than I am. I like to add that. But we went for a walk, and I went with. It was fall and hunting, and we had walked a couple miles. My mom dropped us off. We were walking back to camp, hunting birds and squirrels or whatever. And we were walking down this road. It was walking through this 2-track road with kind of a tunnel of trees, maple trees over the top, and the wet maple leaves. You could smell the rotting leaves, and loved that. And my dad stopped, and he's looking intently over this little hill, and I can't see. And so he's telling me there's a buck down here, and it's before rifle season, so we're not deer hunting. But he gets down, puts me on my shoulders, and puts me on his shoulders, lifts me up, and I remember he said we're going to put some salt on that buck's tail. Well, I'll come back in 2 weeks and shoot him, and I didn't know what that meant. He had to explain it to me.
I don't know what that means.
That means basically he's preserving it for later on.
So
anyhow, but so that was my youngest outdoor memory.
So you saw the buck?
I did.
Wow.
And he was trailing a doe. It was a cool experience. And like I said, those are probably some of the earliest memories I have.
Yeah.
They both included, and you and I have talked about my dad and the table, the whole thing. It's been a great basis for a lot of things.
Yeah. So like church, was that a part of your, like I know they have churches in the UP. I'm gonna refrain from my UP jokes because of you and Linda and your family. And visits.
Yeah.
I see after living. I mean, it took me 15 years before I finally got past Mackinac Island.
Yeah.
I see the beauty of that amazing place.
Yeah.
But like was church a part of your life?
It was actually. We were there Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday evening, and then my parents for a while were janitors at the church with 6 little kids. So I remember riding around on the buffer, they'd be buffing the floor and I'd be on there riding it around.
Really?
And so we were there a lot and got real involved. Linda and I met at church, and she started coming there when she was 8 or 9 and then through youth group, and had some great, I look back at some of the mentors I had, and just hard to get people to put the time in anymore like they used to, to really invest in the younger people. And they did. I mean, I could tell you 20 names. I don't forget anything, as you've probably noticed.
Yeah.
And don't tell me anything you don't want me to remember.
Yeah.
But all those people that put so much time into me as a young boy and then a young man. So, yeah, no, I had a great childhood. I mean, it wasn't perfect on it by any means. My parents were human like everybody else, but I couldn't have asked for a better upbringing.
So hunting, fishing, that's just a part of life. I assume you're learning that from Dad.
Oh, yeah.
And to a certain degree from the legend, your big brother.
Yeah, and actually it was funny because we used to go trout fishing on Saturday mornings, or my dad and Dave did. And I wasn't old, I could barely walk through the woods. I was probably 5, 6 years old or so, 7 years old. And lots of times he would put me with Dave. And so Dave and I have a unique relationship, and we still have a really close relationship. The first deer I ever got to see get shot was sitting next to Dave.
Mm.
And my dad walked up after he heard him shoot. He comes up, and Dave's about ready to put a knife to this deer. And he goes like that and points and says,
"To you,
give him that knife." And I was 10 years old or so.
Really?
So they showed me how to gut my first deer when I was 10.
And it wasn't even yours.
It wasn't even mine, no.
Yeah, so you were all up in them guts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that doesn't.
So like when was your first like deer?
I was 14.
Yeah.
No, I was 15. I take that back.
Really?
First year I hunted, I didn't shoot one because I was legally hunted at 14. And with my dad and Dave, they were both there. We were making a little push along a river. And actually, the year before, I'd asked my dad, used to get 2 days off for school. School closed, If you're not from Michigan, can't appreciate that.
Like they would cancel school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The first 2 days.
So the boys and girls could go
15th
hunt.
and 16th. There weren't many girls at that time, but that's sure
Yeah.
grown now. Anyhow, and I asked him the first year, can I just stay one more day? And he said, no, but he said, next year, if you make the honor roll, the first semester, or the first grade, the first grading period, he said, you can stay an extra day. So the next year I said, hey, Dad, remember that? No, I don't remember. I said, you told me I could stay. That third day I killed my buck.
Nice.
First buck ever. So
how big was it?
It was a 7-point. It was a nice buck.
Yeah.
Kind of like the bucks that you've got up there with me. And
they're small bucks.
they're nice bucks. They're nice bucks.
Yeah. I mean, well, sorry, compared to what you've,
compared to a lot of the other bucks that Linda kills, if nothing else.
So you had said, hey, listen, you accepted Christ at a young age. You're in church. You're in a Christian family. You're learning the outdoors. Into your teen years, you said, hey, I wasn't perfect. Was there ever a struggle like between the world and kind of your faith, or was it like faith always there, or like what were you learning about God like during that time?
Like I said, we had some great leaders at church, so they pumped into me. And actually some guys that would take me fishing. My dad, we had 6 kids in the family. My dad spent a lot of time with us in the outdoors. But then I had other guys at church that would invite me. I was younger than all these guys that would take me. And even some guys that were just out of high school that I was playing sports with those guys. And we just had a great group. And so I think for the most part, my walk with the Lord was pretty strong through that time. Now, you get further in, and I've screwed up in my marriage life. I've to the point where, it took some shaking to get me back to where I needed to be. But at that time, my young age, actually, I was. It's funny. I've just been thinking that all my writing and everything. When I memorized scripture as a kid, and I memorized a lot, but it was usually because it was a competition of some kind. Bible drill.
But
you're but it's amazing how all those verses that I thought, I'll never use these things, and how literally every day God brings them back now. So, I had great youth.
So you get married at 18.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you do after that?
Linda and I got married at 18. A year later, we had our first son. At the time we were 21, we had 22. We had 2 boys, and then decided that I needed some kind of plan. And we went to Northern Michigan University, or I went there, and Linda moved up, and we went to college in Marquette for 3 years, and from there then got a start into guiding. I started guiding right out
of college.
I was an outdoor rec major, and most of that was based towards community recreation.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to do it outdoors, and I just saw.
Yeah, because there's not like a degree for I'm going to be the North American guide.
No,
for dudes like me.
Yeah, no,
and
actually, I had a really good. My counselor in college told him what I wanted to do, so we really built kind of my own major. It was outdoor rec, but then we also put business classes with it, and I actually took some outdoor rec law or some recreation law. I took some things like that, so we built my own major really that way. So that was, didn't know that that's where it was going at the time. I enjoyed writing in college, enjoyed writing before that, but I really never put myself to it,
But you knew you wanted to be outdoors.
I did. Oh,
you
no
knew,
doubt.
Yeah. Before we jump even more into that, was there ever any inkling that you were going to integrate faith with the outdoors at that time?
No.
Not at all.
Not really.
It's just, look, I'm a Christian. And I love the outdoors. I'm married. I got to support my family. I'm going to go to college. And man, if I could get a job, because really like guiding and outdoor stuff, as I'm not native to Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm from Port-au-Prince,
right.
And then
nobody knows where that's
at. Yeah. Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
Right.
Okay, that's the tropics.
Go.
But one thing I've discovered about like your stereotypical Buckley man or Northern Michigan man, and maybe to a certain degree, and Manistee or Mesa, Kingsley, wherever the guys, Calava, is, whoa, that's the dream. Yeah. But so many guys are like, no, they could never do that. But you're actually like, no, I want to figure out how to do this.
Right. Yeah, that started about 1988.
Yeah.
We started a business. My brother Dave and my dad had a couple of good years in business, and they saw where I was going, where my strengths were, and I love to take people, and I love to build relationships. And they said, hey, what if we do this? Would you be interested in coming and doing this? So we started a camp and started guiding. And my dad had hunted out in Colorado started like 1959. People always wanted, hey, can I go with you sometime? So Dave and I started guiding in Colorado in 88, and I started in the UP in 88, and it just took off, went way from there. But it was kind of like, what's the old saying? You do what you love doing, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was hoping for, and that's what I was going for. But ministry wasn't a part of it. I mean, we didn't hide our faith. We shared our faith through what we did. But we decided that first night, as I had hunters coming in, we decided that we want to treat everybody like they're the most important person there. And they became part of camp. Everybody that comes becomes their camp to come to. And that was our goal at the time. And I think we've lived that out for the most part.
So you had a hunting camp in Michigan, but you're also guiding out west.
I was, yeah.
What kind of things are you
mostly elk
to
at that time.
Elk.
We guided elk since 88. I think Dave and I, just 2 years ago was the end of that. Now I don't think there's any way I could guide elk again in Colorado or any place else. But, we've done...
Just physically.
Just physically, yeah. I can't climb anymore. But we did that. I still have a lease in South Dakota where you've seen some of the bucks we've killed in South Dakota. The whitetails there are amazing. So we've got that. I've run camps on Kodiak Island, Alaska, and pretty much all the way across, used to have on Northwest Ontario bear camp when you could still legally go up from the States and do that, from all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley and all the way over to Florida. So we've kind of run camps all over the place.
Right. And so this is all like during your 20s, early 30s?
Yeah, I started about 28, I think I started.
Yeah.
And went to, still doing it.
Yeah.
That's where the transition comes. About 7-8 years ago, we decided this is either ministry now or we're not doing it.
Yeah. So kind of talk about that transition because, obviously you spend any time outdoors, it reminds me of what it says in Romans that, that no one can look at creation, the beauty, it's magnificent, or the law that God's written on our hearts and deny that there's a God. Now, some people can try, but obviously that's been instilled in you since you were 6 years old. But you're saying that along that time, like your business is growing, you're pretty successful. I know over the years you've had companies like, you're rocking that Matthews archery hat right now. Like, different people come to you and say, hey, push our stuff or wear our stuff and all that kind of stuff. But it just kind of happened because you're passionate about it. When did it for you, like, were there any God sightings along the way where you first started to feel a tug, maybe either positively or negatively, that, maybe I should give this to God?
Yeah. I don't know if I can point the spot. I don't know if I can say, hey, here's where it changed. I think what happened is when people started asking, hey, what's different in your life than in mine? And that's just a real recent thing that happened I'll get to later. But when we saw that we could have an effect, all of a sudden people would call us that were hunting with us. And I think this is how it really changed. We had people call us. I had a friend call me one time and says, Dean, I can't come this fall. I said, why not? I said, if it's financial, come, because don't stay home because you can't afford it. And he said, well, my wife served me papers this morning. And he said, I don't think I can come. And I said, okay. I said, well, don't come. I'm holding your spot. Don't come for any reason. If it's impossible. Well, we started praying for him and our family was praying for him. And Micah was my grandson, who you've met, started every day. Have you heard from Mr.? I won't say his name. Yeah. And I say, no. And he said, okay, then have you called him and checked on him, let him know we're praying for him? And that marriage was saved after quite a while. And all of a sudden I realized we had a bigger responsibility than hunting. And that's how I met Matt Stevens. He was there with a group of the guys that he worked with. And it was kind of a rough group. But we never stopped. We never sit down for a meal without saying grace. And Matt said, hey, this guy's not just a camp owner. And that's how we started a conversation. That's how we got involved with the Tab. And it's really, that's when we saw that it was changing lives.
Yeah.
We just baptized the 5th guy that's hunted with us, that guys that have come to Christ, and just last weekend. And one of those guys was a guy whose family was saved, and saved from divorce. That part. And just this past year, he came to Christ. We baptized him last weekend.
Right. So let me describe for our listeners just a little bit of what I experience at Power. So it's not really in Powers; it's outside. I had a little GPS pin that someone gave me, and kind of where your house is. It's just typical UP. There is a concrete road in front of you, but at some point, you and your wife Linda, your lovely wife Linda, you built a bunkhouse, and so there's a bunkhouse. What does a bunkhouse sleep?
13.
13 people, and just the living room alone is impressive. There's so many trophies in there. There's
mostly Linda's.
Mostly Linda's, but there's a fireplace and some big comfy couches, and there's like a little mud room that's really like a locker room for hunters in the morning, and little kitchen area, and then there's I think it's 6 bedrooms.
Four bedrooms.
Four, but it sleeps 13. We've got bunk beds in there, and there's 2 bathrooms. But one of the things that I remember from my very first visit, when Matt's like, "Yeah, you gotta come up here and hunt with old Dean."
You do a great Matt impersonation.
and then I remember him saying to me, he was saying most pastors need to go, and or Dean always says most pastors need to get away, but they never will.
Right.
And I took that as a challenge. I was like, I'll show you how much I can rest and take time off and go hunt, even though everything's busy and I need to be here.
Right.
So that's what I experienced. And then was in the big house, which is where you and your family live. There's this big, giant dining room table. And after the morning hunt, there was always a brunch. And then after the afternoon or evening hunt, there was always a dinner. And sitting around that table, I remember the very first time I was there, you started talking about the table and how important it was at the table. So I know we're jumping ahead just a little bit, but why is the table at camp such a big deal going back to your childhood for you?
Well, first of all, we grew up in an era when everybody gathered at the table for dinner. That doesn't happen that often anymore. There are still a lot of families that do that, but the majority of them don't do that anymore.
Life's busy. People are going in every different direction,
But we always made time there's 6 of us kids and my parents, so there's 8 of us around the table. And it was a pretty quiet time. My dad held a pretty tight rein on that, but that transferred into camp, and the times we learned to play cribbage, playing cards as very young. I was raised in a really conservative Baptist church.
So there was no euchre. You were playing cribbage.
But even cribbage, I just off the subject, one time I remember coming back from a youth retreat.
Yeah.
And my best friend and I, who my parents played cribbage with, we're playing cribbage on the church bus. We had this older woman she was a chaperone, walked down. I thought she was going to have a heart attack when she saw cards on the bus.
Really?
Cards on church bus. It was not a good thing.
No, anyhow. I share it, man. No. That's we love Baptists, but if it was super hyper conservative Baptist, then you probably take medicine for it. But that's all right. We love them.
I've had lots of years of consultations on that. So
you're eating at the table. You're playing games. At the table.
We were, and at camp, we sat around the table and we played cards and talked. That's what our old camp. We had a big fireplace and we sat around that. But we played. That table was something. Well, I think my dad and my brother Dave built the first table. That table that you sat with me was a smaller table at our old camp. And then we got this new one. We had bigger space. So my dad and I cut the outer edges off, and it's a big pine slab table, and it's a beautiful table, but it's the gathering spot. To me, going and doing that is far more important than going sitting in a deer stand or hunting turkeys or whatever. The part of hunting to me is that relationship building table, and that's really what it is. It's funny, we got a really nice living room there, full of mounts in my house, and then out in the back in the bunkhouse, we got that big living room, comfortable sofas, everything.
It's got to be 30 mounts in there.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, I think there's 50 between the two. 50 between the two
I didn't
buildings,
count them because I don't want to, envy.
Yeah, well, I honestly, I've had good friends that are taxidermists, and every time someone shoots one of my kids or my grandkids or Linda, hey, let me do that for you.
Yeah.
And so.
And plus, you're sending them business because you're a guide. No,
right.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But those aren't done for anybody else to see. Those are so when I sit down, we look and I remember those hunts, and who we were with was more important. And we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we got big living room and 2 places there. Almost nobody sits in those places. They're sitting around that table, sometimes till bedtime, or, that table's always full. And one of the best things I ever came out of that table is you doing a men's retreat, talking about their father's table. And that was my father's table. And to see, and it was about David and Mephibosheth, and him being invited to his father's table, and what that means really in eternity, what that means for those of us that come to Christ. And that ties that perfectly into what that table means, and it has been since I was a little kid. I remember the first camp table we had, and that was just a warm place. So
it wasn't just food; it was dear stories.
Oh yeah,
I've picked up knowledge at that table from the 3 or 4 times I've been to, or 2 or 3, I think, that I've been to your place.
Oh, probably 4 or 5 counting bringing your kids.
Yeah.
5 probably.
Exactly. And so there's knowledge, but like on that very first trip, and this is after you and Linda have decided, okay, we're going to use guiding and hunting and fishing and whatever. We're going to use this for the glory of God. And I kept asking Matt, well, listen, I know he's a guide, and I know this is, this isn't free, and I'm eating these great meals up here, and it was like, what do I pay, and how much do I pay, and and I know this is a pay per camp. So if someone's out there going, hey, I want to go where it was. But what you said to me, because so many pastors won't go, you were like, okay, there's one thing. Here's your payment. You got to be ready with a devotional.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I got a devotional. But when I got there, after that, sitting at that table, the devotion, I don't know if I ever told you this, the devotional was in my head was like, no, I'm not going to do that one. And I quick looked at a different place because I'd been studying for a series we were doing here at the Tab on Samuel. And was just really impacted by David's love for his dead friend Jonathan and how he extended that to crippled Mephibosheth and how he'd been invited to the table. And I remember being there and I was like, I must have picked the right Devo because I could see that Dean would, I mean, we didn't move on after the Devo. We kept talking about it. But actually since then, and I haven't shared this with you because I knew we were going to talk about the table. Before this podcast, I was like, yeah, Ben Brown made this table. And your table's a lot bigger. It's got a dime?
It's a dime on each end. That's an afterthought. I tried to pick it up the other day, but the first time in years I actually tried. It's embedded. And I thought, I got to pick that up and get it out of there.
So Matt, I know that, Matt's over here, and back in the day, well, Matt is a master carpenter. So under the, what is it, epoxy?
It's an epoxy top.
Yeah, under the epoxy on each end, there's a dime. And every time I'm there, I'm like, oh, there's the, you're not picking up that dime.
It still did it for me after 20 some years.
Yeah. But the thought that came to my mind since then, and just as you were talking right now, how many significant interactions in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, happen at a table. A story will begin, and as Jesus reclined at table. Yeah. Now, we don't recline at your table, we sit, but, you can get a little relaxed.
I put my feet up on another chair.
Yeah. But it was, as Jesus reclined at table, they questioned him, or they asked him. It's while they were sitting at table, he asked a question about, hey, when I came in here, you didn't do this and this and this, but she's anointing my hair. How many significant things happened? And then when we see, Jesus, the Last Supper, after the meal, while they were still at the table, right? And then we see at the end of all things, we're invited to the wedding supper of the Lamb, which will happen at a table. Yeah. And so to me, it's no mistake that you've made that the centerpiece of your camp with all the stuff we can hunt and all the stories. And my first time there, it was, the reason I call your brother the legend is because your hunting stories are amazing. And people listening are probably, shut up, John, we'd like to hear some of them, right? But then the legend would say nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd look over and he had this look like, is he going to gut me? And then I'd look at him and he'd go, yep, that's just how it went. Or he'd just add that little thing. And I was like, man, a few words. Yeah. But I was enamored by sitting at that table with, kind of the stuff that I was learning.
And it really is. And I've used that actually I've stole some of your stuff and preached on Mephibosheth and David. And I've written several things on it since
Not
that
stealing.
time.
There's a saying, if the bullet fits, shoot it.
That's right.
Shoot it.
But it's true. And, that time there, it's funny because that first time you came, I think we had a banjo and a guitar there, and we sang some old songs and had a great time. Just
I didn't play the banjo.
No, me either.
But I liked the banjo.
So, yeah. It was matter of fact, I'd love to have a banjo there again. But it was that time around the table, like I said, that's where the relationships are built. Relationships are built in the deer stands, and that's if I've gotten, guiding for a living is not a high income proposition.
Right.
But Linda and I've talked about the relationships we've built over the years and the lives that have been changed, including ours, by other people. You guys coming up and your staff that have been there and shared with us has changed us. But all the other lives, I said, we've just, baptized our fifth one of our hunters that has come to Christ from the time spent around that table. And that's made all, life's short. It's getting shorter all the time. But that's really what that table has represented, and it's the relationships built. And I don't want to pat myself on the back, but last week our men's group, which we're going to have your men's groups tonight, but I invited the two guys that were coming to be baptized at our camp that had hunted with me for years, and we went to our men's group. I invited these two guys to come with me in the morning because I lead it. And so we were talking, and one of them, he's 80 years old or 81 years old. And he said, someone asked him something, and he said, what brought me to Christ, he said, was I watched Dean and Linda and the family. And he thought, there's something different. And we were sitting around the table at the time. And he said, I want what they have. And that's what the table's there for.
Yeah. Because literally that table sits in your home. So you're guiding, but there are people sitting in your home. I mean, the scripture talks about showing people hospitality.
Yeah.
That hospitality is a spiritual gift. And so you're using what you're passionate about. Right. But, even your brother, the legend said, I don't know if it was you, it was probably you who said it about him, but he stopped hunting years ago.
Yeah.
Just because he gets more joy out of putting a guy like me in a position to be successful, and in fact, I remember when I did shoot a UP deer, I had, you gave me the digits, and it was probably the second or third sit, and a nice buck. I thought it was a great buck. Sorry,
it was
whatever. It was it was an 8-point. It was narrow. It had really dark horns.
It did. One of Linda's pets.
Yeah. We'll get to that. But I shot the deer. Went down with one shot, no follow-up necessary. I called you. You and your brother were out there immediately, or within 25 minutes.
It's a 20-minute drive.
Drove right out there, loaded up the deer, and then I'd driven out that night with your grandson, Micah, and he was in an adjacent field. And of course, I'm thinking about me and my deer, but I'm still learning because I didn't start to hunt until I'm in my 40s, right? And then you said to me, well, you can sit and wait for Micah because it's not dark yet, and we'll see you back at camp. Yeah. And I'm like, there goes my deer in your truck with you and the legend. And it was like, oh, I was learning standard protocol. I came in with Micah. I'm leaving with Micah. Yeah. So I went over and parked where I was going to pick him up and waited for, I don't know, it was about an hour until he was done, and that was fine. And we, rolled back, and the first person I see is your wife, Linda, when I come in for dinner. And she was like, oh, you got a buck. And I was describing it for her. And what stand were you in? And you've named all your stands. They're all
Pedro's.
named. It was Pedro's stand, And because there's always a story behind it. Every stand and who shot what there, And, out of Pedro's stand. And then she said, she goes, oh, yeah. She goes, I saw that one. That's a nice one. And I was like, and I had a big, grin on my face. And then I started connecting the dots. And then I went, when did you see that one? She goes, I saw him last week. I said, were you in Pedro's stand hunting? And she was like, yeah. And I said, you saw him? She goes, yeah, that's a nice deer. She was super sweet about it. And then I just started going, Linda, you passed that deer. She goes, yeah, but that's okay. That's a nice, I mean, she was being nice.
I mean, you were happy with it.
And I'm sitting here going, Linda passed on the 8-point that I shot, right? But then I'm sitting there at the table a few minutes later, and there's the legend. And we're waiting for dessert. I don't know. We're going to have dessert or something. And your brother says to me, he goes, preacher. He called me preacher. He goes, hey, preacher. He goes, what'd you shoot that deer with? And I said, 308. And he goes, was a good shot. And I'm telling you, that was better than shooting the deer. But the legend spoke, and he said, that's a good shot with the 308. Now, I don't know if he's paid to say that.
No.
But I was like, if the legend says it, he doesn't get paid anything. But let's go back to like some change life stories. So you know that, or I think you know that, our church, the vision of our church has changed lives. And one of the reasons we wanted to partner with you, and when I say partner, when we do the big give, we believe in your ministry, which now, you guys incorporated the high impact outdoors. In fact, your website is highimpactoutdoors.org. We'll put that in the show notes. We want our people to know about that ministry. But you started saying, okay, the direction is shifting from guiding and from business to ministry. And now it's trusting that, God, you're going to provide that we've focused here.
Yeah.
Talk about like some of the changed lives, or what was like the first life that you saw change, that it really got the gears going in your mind and your heart just burning that, this is what we're doing, Linda.
Well,
this is what we're about.
You know the guy from the first story, Shorty.
Yeah, well, I think Shorty's shared his testimony. I think it's okay to share his story.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No,
so describe Shorty and just tell us about Shorty.
I enjoy it now because it's like watching your own kid grow, to watch him grow. Well, Shorty had just hunted with me a couple times. He came turkey hunting. We used to do a ton of turkey hunting. People don't know the UP has got a lot of turkeys in parts of it, and we've got a lot of leased land and private land to hunt. And Shorty came with some other guys a couple times, maybe 3 times, and but just for like 3 days at a time. But we made a good connection. We didn't talk all year. We just see him those 3 days a year. And I was running a lodge on Kodiak Island after these 3 years, and he called one time, and I still, I cry about it a little bit, and he laughs about it. But he called me one day, and he says, "Dean, you got a minute? I'm in the middle. I'm on Kodiak Island. No roads in or out."
And for the uneducated, that's Alaska.
That's off the coast of Alaska.
There you go. Yeah.
And he says, "You got a minute?" I said, "Shorty, I really don't. Actually, I just had a boat go down with
Wait. Is there cell service on Kodiak Island?
We had a landline.
Okay, because I've never been to Alaska.
There is now.
Okay.
They put
Sorry,
a tower.
Didn't mean to mess with your story
that's
there.
fine.
Yeah, I'm here to fill in the details.
He calls the lodge and so you got a minute? I said, "No, I really don't." And I said, we had a boat go down that morning with 5 clients and a boat captain. And I was just trying to get a way to get out to him. Luckily, everybody made it. It was a great story. I actually got to fly a float plane. I never flew a plane in my life. But
wait. You piloted it?
Well, I had the pilot with me, and we flew over. He said, "We got to be able to drop my radio because the boat, we can see the boat underwater, and they're on shore." Luckily, they were close enough to get on shore. And he says, "You're going to have to get this stuff together." He said, "Never mind, you just fly." I said, "I've never flown a plane." He said, "There's one rule in flying." Now, this makes a great devotional. He said, "When the ground gets bigger, pull back." He said, that's the only rule in flying.
So you're flying a float plane so he can drop the radio.
A Beaver, right. So we flew over, and anyhow, so that's what happened earlier that day. So I had an excuse to tell Shorty. Before I even go out to the place where it happened, he calls me. So I said, "I really don't." So about 3 days later, I call Shorty back after we got the boat salvaged and everybody's okay. And I call him back. I said, "Hey, what'd you need? I'm really sorry." He said, "No big deal." He said, "My dad had just died. I didn't know who else to call." And I felt about this big, about, an inch big. And I felt terrible. And he said, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." He said, "I didn't know who else to call but you." Now, I didn't have that kind of relationship with Shorty at the time that I knew that
he was just a 3-day a year turkey hunter that had been to your camp.
So if we wonder if we have an impact on people by our life, there's a good example. So Shorty still came around a couple times. We talked about it, and we had that ministry in Colorado, Caring for Pastors, the legend and I, Dave and I, and our wives and a couple others, a couple pastors.
Now, wait a second. I don't know anything about this ministry.
Oh,
so we might have to backfill
that's where
here.
High Impact came out of.
Gotcha.
So we 83,000 acre ranch that one of the wealthiest men in the United States owned. Nobody knows him. And he's actually best friends with James and Shirley Dobson. Him and his wife are best friends. So he lets us use this ranch for ministry if we'll run his elk hunts in the fall. Well, we'd have paid to come run the elk hunts. There was no better place I've ever seen for elk hunting. So Dave and I were doing this. It was a tough place. Satan had more control over that community than I've ever seen any place. Maybe Kodiak was about the same.
This is out in Colorado.
Out in Colorado.
Yeah.
So we were working this ministry in Colorado. Linda and I were going back and forth. Dave and Wendy were living there, the legend and his wife. And the first time we go out there, Micah, our grandson, who you know, was about 10 or 12, I guess, 10. And one of the pastors asked him to share his testimony one day. We were riding the top. They have a picnic at the top of the mountain. He's riding in the back of a little Ford Jeep Liberty like this in the back, tucked in there, sharing his testimony. So we get back the last day. We're just going to get ready to leave. It was in the morning, and it was early June. So the streams are full, icy water rolling off the hill mountainside. And one of the pastors says, "Micah, when are you going to be baptized?" Because he had come to Christ but hadn't been baptized yet. And one of the pastors asked him that, and I said, "How about right now?" So literally, that's kind of my personality. Let's just go do it.
Yeah.
And Dave Linda calms me down on that, and I've got her almost going my way now. And Dave is let's wait a minute. So I said, let's go. Why don't we baptize you now? So there's a little pond behind the lodge we were in, the camp we were in. We went out in the back, and one of the pastors and myself baptized my grandson. Micah puts this on Facebook. Shouldn't have had a Facebook account yet at 10 or 12 years old, but he did. And my friend Shorty sees this. He gets a hold of me within a couple of days because Micah puts all the pictures there, and he says, "Hey, Dean," he said, "would you baptize me? Or are you able to baptize me?" And I said, "I'm able to baptize you." I said, "I'd be glad to, but let me tell you what baptism is before you ask me to baptize you."
Wow. So this is the same guy who had called you when his dad died, and you felt terrible.
I did.
And so this is just the next year. Is this a couple years later?
Yeah, probably the next year.
Wow.
So he sees
the testimony of your grandson
of exactly what baptism is.
And he's interested in baptism. Yeah.
So he did that, and so I said, "Yeah, I can baptize you." He lives 5 hours from me, 4.5 hours. So he says, "Well, this day would work." Well, it happens to be Linda's birthday, the day that I'm going down to explain to Shorty about baptism, and which really means I was going to tell him about salvation.
Yeah.
And so Satan attacked me. It's hard to explain all of it, but that day Satan did not want me to go to Shorty's. I mean, he made every obstacle possible. He knew what was coming. So I drive. I stopped and met with a group of pastors in Green Bay, Wisconsin, right by the Lambeau Field. Yeah. The hallowed ground there.
Yeah. For cheeseheads.
Right, for cheeseheads. So I go down to Shorty's. I literally lay out the plan of salvation. And faster than I've ever seen, he said, "That's exactly what I want."
Wow.
So I pray with Shorty, and we get all done. This is how the camp came about, by the way, how the bunkhouse came about. As soon as I get done, he prayed with me and accepted Christ, and he's understanding it. We're talking, and I said, "Satan didn't want me here today." He said, "What do you mean by that?" That's a pretty big thing to talk to a guy that's been a
Christian for a minute.
30 seconds maybe. Yeah. And I said, well, I told him all what went on. And it was some bad stuff went on that day, some attacks on me. And so I said, my dad had passed away. And I've explained it to you, but a big misunderstanding what was supposed to happen with that camp. And we were going to either have to buy it back or let it go. And we had decided that morning, with all the attacks that had come, Linda and I decided we're going to let that camp go. We've been praying about it for like 5-6 weeks. I get the Shorties and I say, I might not make it through this. I get the Shorties and I say, "Satan didn't want me here." So he said, "Why?" And I said, told him what went on. And I said, we've been trying to decide what to do at the camp. And here's a believer that's been there 30 seconds, says, "You can't sell the camp." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that camp." Now, shortly after that, we met a lady that Shorty was dating. And she comes up and she says, "Shorty told me what went on." And she said, "I want to know more about it." Well, I've come to find out she's been a believer. She's a Moody graduate.
Nice. And Moody Bible Institute. Shorty's dating a girl from Moody Bible. Wow.
Didn't even know what that meant a month before that.
You just thought it meant she was Moody.
But that's right.
No, it's DL.
2 years ago, or 2 years later, or the next year, he said, "Hey, Dean, we're getting married." He said, "I want you to do my wedding." So, I had never done that. That was, I went online and got a quickie. I give.
You can do that in Michigan.
I give other pastors a hard time. Say, I don't know what the big.
What's the big deal about ordination?
Yeah, what's the big deal? It took me 1995 and 3 minutes, and I just tell people, I said, I've just got a certificate that allows me to do that. I'm not an ordained pastor. So anyway, I got the baptize him, lead him to the Lord, baptize him, and then marry him and his wife. And now they've become some of our best friends. So that's the story. That's a story that
was the
changed.
one that launched it. Yeah.
We just really saw. And like I said, then this past week, and Shorty shared that on Facebook and told a couple friends. They were believers and said, we've never been baptized. So it went from Micah's baptism and his willing to say, here's what I've done. Here's the change in my life.
Yeah.
Here's what Christ has done. Did that publicly. Shorty saw that. Shorty did the same thing. Two of his friends, one that's hunted with me several times, did that. And this week we did the same thing with two more. And so
it's like a domino effect.
That's exactly what it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that's exactly.
Yeah, it's like we see changed lives end up, God uses them to change other lives. Yeah.
So we just, that's why we do what we do. That's why we've got the camp. That's why we keep going. There's days where we think, let's just go hunting,
Yeah.
and then you get people there and we get so energized, and now the bunkhouse has become, that was the other, you said there's a kitchen and the little dining room in the bunkhouse and stuff, but almost all the meals are done in our house.
Yeah.
Around that table.
Yeah.
And,
and that was made clear. It's like breakfast, we have coffee, and if you want, you grab a bagel or something, but we're out the crack of dawn during hunting season.
Before that.
Yeah.
By summer.
Yeah. Before dawn.
Right.
0 dark 30,
right.
But then coming back to some of those legit spreads that, Linda will make, or I know your son cooks. Micah's a great cook.
Actually, everybody, my son Ryan's a great cook. Nick has actually cooked at a Bible camp for a summer. Yeah. So we were taught.
The problem with Nick is parts of his beard might end up in. No, I'm just kidding. His
Guaranteed.
beard does not end up.
Some of it's dragging in there, and Ryan's the same way. So they're,
he gets a little something right in there. Yeah. So Shorty was a big deal.
He was.
What are some of these other just kind of life change stories that you've seen? Even because like I think one of the things that is a mistake, and this is having been I tell people I was born and raised in the Christian ghetto. Mm-hmm. I'm a son of a missionary and a pastor. I've been in church my whole life, like you have. Been around ministries. I was a missionary, a sports missionary for a hot second, church ministry. Mm-hmm. Many times, people just hear the wins. They hear the Shorty, which is a great story. Right. It's like, wow, you find that all the way through. But success in ministry isn't always, and this person gave their life to Christ and was baptized, and now today they're, a seminary professor.
Right.
Sometimes it's just you were the next domino in the domino chain, and we're leaving that up to God. But just like, what are some of those?
Some of us are planting seeds, some are watering, and some are making the harvest.
Somebody knows his Bible. Yeah. Give us some of those.
Well, it's funny because the first time I ever spoke, I used to travel and speak some.
Yeah, how did that start?
Well,
I'm giving you.
No, that's fine.
I'm barraging you.
Oh, no, that's fine. It's funny. Some of this stuff I can't believe we've never covered, and we may have, and you forgot. You're getting older.
Yeah,
and I'm
look at you,
older
pot,
yet. I just turned 60.
Kettle.
I just turned 60.
Yeah, all right. I'm only 8 years behind you.
Yeah, I know. I'm keeping track, so when you turn 60, I'll know. But anyhow, we, I started speaking. I used to speak at like Michigan Deer Classic type things, at these bigger shows, and I'd talk about hunting on a budget because we do the Western hunts. Mm-hmm. I'd talk about hunting Michigan, whatever. I did a lot of turkey seminars and things like that, and traveled. And then I had a church in the UP, a good church, Kearney, Michigan, and asked if I'd come speak. Well, they had a speaker every day. They had a venison feed, and they had a few hundred people come in this little. Kearney's nothing. It's
sorry, we have to translate. So venison feed is like a wild
game. It's just a wild game dinner.
Yeah. So you're getting the community to come in. You're going to share venison.
Right. And that's their main goal with that was just to get people coming in, comfortable coming into church. But they didn't really want a message with it. And I spoke there a few times. Then one year they said, after a couple of years, they said, "Hey, Dean, would you come and speak?" I said, "I will, but if you let me share a message." Because,
more than just training about turkeys or
right.
whitetail or hunting on a budget.
Right. I said, if you let me share a message, I said, I'll come speak because you got all these guys here that don't know the Lord and they need to. And I said, it's a shame not to be sharing. So that was the first time they did that. So I did it, and I think it went well. Actually, a lot of the guys from the church that I know pretty well now said, we've been waiting for that for years, for someone to step up and share. And that year, I don't think you've met these other friends. I got these friends that are they're big houndsmen. They run bear hounds for bobcats in the winter. And a lot of people in Michigan know them. They're a great couple. And they were going to be putting on a rodeo. There's a big rodeo in Kearney, Michigan now.
You're kidding me. They got cowboys up there?
Oh, yeah. Kearney Roundup Rodeo. And there's a lot, thousands of people come there. And they said, we want to do a cowboy church. I said, and Joe, my friend, says, Dean, could you find us someone to speak? And I said, sure. And then Nancy says, Dean, would you preach? Why don't you just preach it? And I said yes before I thought about it.
Yeah.
And then I was stuck. I had no options. So, so that's really how I got started. And then we've traveled. We've spoke at events all over the Midwest, all the way down to Corpus Christi, Texas.
Yeah, that's not the Midwest.
No, that's not the
Midwest.
That's
Texas.
Yeah.
Everything's bigger.
And they'll tell you.
Yeah.
They'll tell you everything's better and bigger. And I love my Texas people.
Yeah.
And,
so like speaking ministry, kind of just, you fell into it.
I did.
Similar to the same way that I did.
Yeah.
But you also have, this is going back to something you said at the beginning, that you love writing.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, now that I think about it, because the very first Wild Game dinner was before we had our new building here at the Tabernacle.
It was packed.
It was packed. It was not, good thing we're not still doing that because it was not up to code.
Well, I just told Martin quickly. I said, the first time I was here, I was on the little side stage, I was way up in front. It was time for me to get up and speak. And I had to go to the bathroom bad.
There was no chance.
There was no way I was getting to the back.
No chance.
If the fire marshal had come in that night, we were all being kicked out.
Yeah, or you'd have put out the fire because you had to go so bad.
That's right.
Yeah.
One or the other, right?
But that time I really only met you, where I really first started to get to know you was Matt Stevens forwarding me your daily devotional. When did that kick off? Like the writing piece, was it the devotional before the books, or the books before the devotional?
I was getting so many devotionals built up that someone said, "Hey, why don't you put out a book so we have it?"
So how did the devotional start?
That was actually in that I was working for some great guys for a company called TCR in the UP that can do concrete restoration, and it was the same business model, the same things they did as Dave, the legend, and my dad did. Ron Hulce and Son was the name of the company years ago, and I worked with them. And Mike, who's the owner of TCR, happened to be in Colorado, and we were setting up this ministry. We went out there and said, hey, God's got something here. We feel something. We want to group together to sit and talk. Well, Mike was there. They were in the middle of a bad lawsuit for a frivolent lawsuit. Matter of fact, the guy has since been found out, and it was bad, and they were really struggling. So I started writing something in the mornings for their group of leadership in their company, and I just started sending it out to those guys. And pretty soon it started to turn into some hunting stories with those devotionals, and from there it went. It turned into more and more. So that was 2014-ish, I think 2014.
That's when you sent out your first.
That's when I sent out my first. And now they've been going out on Facebook. The first 6 years, probably I missed like 2 days, Monday through Friday. And now occasionally I push it hard to get everything out Monday through Friday, but occasionally, maybe once every 2-3 months, I miss a day, and I just, God knows,
But generally speaking, Monday through Friday, if someone is blessed enough, because now I don't have them forwarded to me. Now I'm on the list.
Yeah.
I
do email them as well as Facebook.
Yeah. So it's emailed, right?
Yeah.
So just for the listeners, and I dialed this up on my phone because this came at 9:41 today. Let me just give the people that listen a taste of what kind of an email devotional, because I remember being at your place during one of the hunts, and you're over typing. I can't remember if you're typing on your phone.
No, I've done about 4,000 on my phone. Yeah,
4,000. Which these devotionals are legendary, and because they go all over the nation, and I assume there's all even people outside, right? Yeah. So this one was titled "Walking in the Light." It's from today. It says, "Walking in the light," John 12:46. And the scripture is, "I've come as a light into the world, that whoever believes in me should not abide in darkness." And then the story begins. And this is for our Michigan guys, or if you're not a Michigan guy, you're just an outdoor guy. Even if you're not an outdoors person, but you like it, Like when I can't get outdoors, I'm watching Steve Rinella, the meat eater. I'm still trying to get on one of his hunts, but I'd rather go with Dean. But then the story begins. Just as darkness was closing in on us, we could hear a deer coming from the valley below. It was the last night of Linda's first South Dakota hunt, and I wanted so badly to see her get a buck. I was feeling badly because she was so pumped prior to coming on this hunt. So I assured her that she would see big bucks. But while we saw plenty of deer, we hadn't even seen one buck. Now here we were in the final minutes of the hunt. I'd rattled my set of antlers just minutes before with hopes of attracting a buck for her. Then we heard the steady walking steps of a buck coming up out of the valley below. I was praying, Lord, let him arrive in time. Then there he was, standing broadside at 60 yards in a clear lane. I could make out his huge rack, and I was whispering to Linda to take the shot. And so I won't read the whole rest of it, but that's how so many of the devotionals that you write, how they start. It's like all these stories, and you're a great storyteller, and you have all of these, and then there's a scripture, and you'll immediately associate, usually with a hunt, usually with whitetail, because
or
somebody
elk and
or
turkeys,
elk.
Bears.
But let's be honest, whitetail deer is the most, that's the most difficult
Right.
thing, in North America. This devotional ended with pointing it back to the light of day exposed my spiritual shortcomings and sin nature. The light of Christ revealed my darkness. And so what I love, it's like the musings of a crazy Jeremiah Johnson, style Davy Crockett outdoorsman that you are, in my mind, just accept it. But as you hunt, it's just taking your passion for the outdoors and for hunting, because you don't hunt anything you don't eat, and you're a great steward of the land. And for the one, I don't think any vegans are listening, but you got to get over yourself. The good Lord said, "Kill and eat," but you're always relating it to God and the gospel and our faith in Christ. And how does someone get on that list?
Well, you can go to Facebook, send me a message just saying, "Hey, I'd like this daily." But if you're on Facebook, just look up Dean Hulce. It's Hulce, and then once you look at one, it'll bring it up every day for you.
Gotcha.
And,
gotcha.
Let me know your thoughts.
Or you can get on the email list.
Or you can message
subscribe
me on Facebook
there, right?
and just send it's Dean at outdoormarketing.org.
I love it because it shows that now there have been some times, like it used to come, like it would be on there before I was awake.
Yeah.
So you're definitely
About
getting
noon.
older. Because now, like, all of a sudden we're getting a Devo and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, Dean must be feeling the rheumatism.
The ones that come emailing, lots of times what happens, I put them on Facebook first.
Gotcha,
I literally have people saying, "Hey, where is it? Where is it?" Because a couple of years ago, went back and counted because it goes to a lot of different pages. And over 10,000 people had seen it, that one, just on Facebook. And so I put it on there, but sometimes then I get distracted. I get a phone call or something. I might put it out at 7 or 8 in the morning. Sometimes in the fall, they go out at 4 or 5 in the morning. And so that's why they get late. I forget to go back to the email sometimes to email those, and it goes out to a few hundred people on email as well.
Yeah, but five times 52 weeks, so 5 devotionals a week for 52 weeks, we're talking well over 250 devotionals a week. What kind of responses have you got to those? Because that's a ministry in and of itself.
Oh, yeah. No, and it's funny because lately I've been getting a lot of them. It makes my day when someone says, "This is exactly what I needed today. God must have spoke to you." And I know that my wife even says, I'll give Linda a bad time because she'll say, "I know it's God because you can't do that well." So
she keeps you grounded.
She's my best friend.
Yeah.
And it is God because I'll tell you what, I start pushing buttons on my phone and lots of times I don't know until it's done what it's going to. I know in a concept in my head, and that those verses that I memorized as a kid. I can't tell you where a lot of them are found, but I can tell you what the verse says. Well, Google tells me.
Yeah, Google.
Actually,
you can find the address. Yeah.
Bible Gateway tells me really what. Yeah. So anyhow, I get a lot of people saying exactly what I need, but I have people asking, "Hey, would you pray for me?" I got this young guy in New Mexico. I've never met him, Adrian, and he'll say, "Hey, I need prayer for this," and I've had a chance to say, "Hey, where do you stand spiritually? What do you believe? What's So we've gone back and forth, and whenever he has an issue in life, he gets a hold of me and says, "Dean, I really need your help." And I get a lot of that. Actually, I'm thinking about taking some counseling courses through Christian counseling because Linda and I are just dealing with a lot of couples and a lot of people, and we're doing it anyhow. So it'd be nice to be at least say, "Hey, I got training in that." It's just life experience,
right?
But so we get a lot of that now. the other thing we've done, and we'll talk about the books, or if you want to, or whatever.
Yeah, we do.
But, you know,
Let's go there.
we've been putting them into books. But the other thing I'll talk about is we did a DVD. I think you've seen the DVD.
Yep.
And years ago,
this was years ago.
We did a wild game feed. Yeah, we did a wild game feed. We used to do a lot of them at my church, and at that time in Kingsford before we moved over Powers. And we did God's Great Outdoors tracks, which are great. I mean, you've probably seen them. You know, they got sportsmen and some sportswomen, their life story, and talking about hunting and fishing. It's kind of similar to what I do. And I noticed at the end of the night, we gave out, the first year, we probably gave out 600 of them, maybe 800 of them. Well, probably 80-90% were left on the tables, on the floor, in the garbage can. And I said, what could you give to a sportsman or sportswoman that loves the outdoors that they would actually pay attention to? That, man, hunting videos would be the way to go. So we did a DVD. It took us quite a while, actually. It was several years. And Gabe Van Wormer, who people might know off Michigan Outdoors, he's been on there. He does a lot of editing for, or producing for other hunting and fishing shows. Anyhow, Gabe helped me with that, and I didn't get in front of the camera. We've got 6 or 7 hunters, and or 6 hunts on there, and we tell all parts of the salvation message without bringing any Bible, without bringing anything into it. Just, this is the hunt. One guy kills a trophy. I mean, a Boone and Crockett buck, Pope and Young Boone and Crockett with his bow, and in Ohio, and he talks about the fact that he always wanted to get his name in the record book. He got his name in that record book, but it didn't mean much, you know, once he had done it. Then we talk about the father of Gabe with his 2 kids, and they both kill a deer on the camera. Great hunts. I mean, these are all professionally done. Anyhow, we talk about the love of the father for his children. And then we talk about, another friend calls his big buck in Kansas and kills it, a monster. But we talk about the truth, leaving the truth for a lie. He came to a fake call and what that meant. And then at the last one, we talk about blood trailing. In that blood trailing, we talk about what the loss of blood means and what life comes from blood. So at the end, we lay it all out. Here's what the Bible says about it. And we lay it all out. So I say all that. The very first time we gave those away, the Tabernacle, I don't know if I've told you this, Tabernacle sponsored them. We were at the Traverse City Sports Show. And I got a hold of Matt, and I think Matt probably got a hold of you or somebody, and said, hey, you know, we for 50 cents a piece or whatever, Dean will put these stickers, because we were right down the road, with our church information. Matt literally stood stopping people in the aisle. Hey, you guys got a church? Do you know Christ? You know, here's a good hunting video. Why don't you take this? Well, I think we gave away 500 or 1,000 that weekend. We printed them with a plan of just giving them away, you know, selling them if we could. But, you know, I had some good sponsors that helped, but Linda and I, you know, we just thought this is our life now. Anyhow, about a month or so later, my pastor, who's from right close here, says on a Sunday, he says, hey, we got to have lunch tomorrow. Well, when your pastor tells you that, you're not sure how to take that exactly. Did I screw up and somebody else found out? So we met the next day. So I got to tell you, I got a call from a pastor in this area. And not this church, but I didn't even know what church it was. And he said, I got a call from a woman. The pastor tells my pastor, I got a call from a woman that wanted to tell me a story about her son, 50-year-old son, who was raised in a Christian home, had never come to Christ, never made a decision to follow Christ, and didn't even want to be around it. And he calls his mom one evening. He's got cancer, 50 years old, and they've been praying for him since he was born that he was come to Christ. And he says, Mom, I accepted Christ last night. And she said, what? You know, what happened? He said, I was at a show and someone gave me a DVD and I took it home, and he said, it made sense. Wow. So that was the start of that DVD. So with my writing, lots of times I'll send out if someone orders a book, or if they ask, you know, I give away a lot of books, you know, and
you gave me one.
When I do, I usually put one of these DVDs, or I'll put one of the little pocket devotionals with it. And so what I love is when someone gets a hold of me and says, I don't know who's getting them. I don't know if they've made a decision to follow Christ in their life. I don't know. And but I've had several times where people say, hey, I got that last night. I saw this DVD, threw it in the DVD player, watched it. He said, I want you to know I prayed to accept Christ.
Wow.
So, you know, that's this is what you and I talked about the first
Yeah.
time you were there. And that's what this is my ministry.
Yeah.
I mean, I travel, speak, I write, I do a lot of things, but we never know what we're doing.
Right.
But this is what I tell people when I speak. When we come to Christ, we're 100% in ministry. That moment.
Yeah.
We either fail or we succeed. And when you make your life ministry, which we did, but that doesn't matter if you're picking up garbage bags or if you're preaching at a church. If your life isn't 100% ministry, you're failing.
That's good. That'll preach.
So, yeah.
So that is a great transition because, like, one of the things that I've always loved about you, Dean, is you've forgotten more about outdoor, UP lingo, hunting. And I say that with respect because I don't want to make this about me, but when I came up here, I had no intention to stay in Michigan.
Yeah.
And 19 years later, here I are. And I say it that way on purpose. But I've learned to embrace this culture.
Yeah.
And so instead of being, I hate snow, I don't get camo, now I own a lot of camo. I have a gun safe, I hunt, I fish when I'm with Matt Stevens. So let's transition from the ministry to what can we teach our audience that's the outdoors person, because you've forgotten more stories of how to relate a hunting story, like a crazy hunting story, to the gospel, and you just breeze through somewhere. So, like you said, leaving the truth for a lie, that had something to do with calling something in, and then the other one, you related a blood trail to the gospel. Right. Do you mind just taking those two and just tell? And
that's everyday. These are everyday things for me. Literally, God gives me something.
Yes, these are everyday things, but relate to them because this is what blows my mind. Meeting guys like you, guys like my friend Bob, guys like Matt Stevens, I learned early on to relate everything to the gospel. But a lot of guys they compartmentalize their hunting life from the truth about the gospel and the Bible life. So what do you mean leaving the truth for a lie?
It's funny because since I've been here this morning, just talking upstairs and doing this, about 3 times I've said, hey, there's a great devotional. Because really God gives us things in our lives that everything can be related to the gospel. I say this, it's in tongue in cheek, but I said, even watch Seinfeld. They'll relate to things in Seinfeld to biblical.
You like Seinfeld?
Oh, I love Seinfeld.
Give it up, bro.
I am.
Yes, that's an old soul right there.
I love to do Seinfeld trivia with people, try to outdo one another. Anyhow, so
wait. See, this is our podcast, so we can do whatever we want. So this you don't have to. So, who's your favorite character on Seinfeld?
Kramer,
double fist bumps. That's my man. Kramer.
I got
Jerry. Let me tell you something, Jerry.
I got friends that I can tie to every one of those.
100%. Your house, you are Seinfeld, and there's a Kramer that comes in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. So
that's fine.
Leaving the truth for a lie.
Well, what I did with this is, what God showed me at this is...
so just tell us the story and then devotional us.
And it's really, this guy was sitting in Kansas, first time down there, and they were sitting on the edge of CRP grass, which is just overgrown grass fields. And they rattled in this buck, and I love to rattle. I love to call game. That's, there's...
Okay, now wait a second.
I read a lot.
We have dudes that aren't hunters and women. Rattle.
Rattling
is that a song, or they listen to the rattle the song? or no?
That's my T-shirt you gave me.
Rattle. Yeah.
Anyhow, rattling is taking antlers that have been cut from a dead deer, obviously, and pretending like you're fighting, making the noise of fighting.
Okay.
And deer, and I've watched it many times in the wild, deer will come running to that. Quite often, for dominance reasons, if they're a dominant buck in the area, they'll come to wonder what's going on, who's fighting for dominance. Sometimes because it's coming out, that usually happens during the breeding period. So they're thinking maybe there's a doe there they're fighting over that's ready to be bred. And, they're like a bunch of teenage boys.
Fight.
Yeah. And there's a girl there to be had.
Yeah.
To win the soul, win the heart of. Anyhow, so we this friend rattles, and we do the same thing with calling turkeys, calling deer, whatever. And they'll leave, and these animals think there's something real there, and they'll leave where they're at, and they may even leave a doe that they're there to go over to this fake call. And
so they might even have a doe.
They might, yeah.
But they're I see the devotionals. Oh, the grass is greener on the other side. Here's something. There might be something better over there.
So they leave what's true, and Satan is the ultimate deceiver. Satan will tell us white is black and black is white, and we'll believe it at times because he says it just in the right way,
Mm-hmm.
And And I've fallen for that. I mean, every one of us has. If someone says they haven't, they're lying. And but so when that animal leaves the truth and comes to a lie, ultimately it means death. If the animal's what you're after.
So this guy in Kansas
rattles. He hangs his antlers up, and literally seconds later, here comes his buck down, and he shoots it, and it just goes a little ways. Shoots it with his bow, goes out and dies. So I talk about that in my devotional and in this DVD, that when we leave what's true, which is God, when we leave what God has called us to, and we go to a false call, which the rattling is false call, or a grunt call, or a turkey call for turkeys, or an elk call, which there's nothing I'd rather do than call. I mean, I sit outside and call chickadees and owls and blue jays. But when we leave that truth and we come to a lie, that's ultimately going to mean death. And that's eternal death for those of us that don't follow Christ. And so that's how God speaks to me like that every single day with something.
That's that actually something identical. Like I've told this story because I don't speak at the same like hunting wild game things, but my favorite thing is to speak to men.
Yeah.
And I think I appalled a bunch of Canadians because I'm speaking at a Promise Keepers event, and there's some great outdoorsmen in Canada, but there's also some Canadian guys. Well, we won't go there. And I'm telling this hunting story because it fit with the message they asked me to share it. It's similar, and I'm not going to bore our listeners with every detail, but it's the first time I shot a turkey. And I'm with my friend Bob, just right outside of Buckley, and we have a call, and we have a plastic decoy. And the decoy's just, sitting on a stick, just floating on the wind. It wasn't even a good decoy.
Yeah.
It was a beat up decoy, right? But we started calling, and from far away, we saw two toms just start coming across. They had to come over 200 yards across this plowed field in spring. And we're just calling it and calling. And, they kind of split up, and one of them comes right to that plastic fake lie, right? And doing what turkeys do, he's preening it. I mean, I don't know what you call it, but when he puts all his feathers out, he's displaying, and he's like, because he's thinking, and he has no idea that death is in the hands of a preacher sitting in a little tent with a 12 gauge, right? And right when his mind, we know what his mind was on. It was on this thing that was fake. And after I shot it and I got the bird, and then just a few minutes later, the other one came back around. Even after seeing the death or hearing it at least, that other turkey, it wasn't 5 minutes later, came around the backside, and my buddy got him. Yeah. So we had two down turkeys, And as we're walking out of there, I freaked out the audience because I said the only thing I could think about was porn.
How deadly it is
and false.
Yeah.
Because it's plastic.
Right.
And but called in and just with all the feathers and all that kind of stuff and how that's killing. So I had my own little devotional with the same thing as leaving the truth for a lie. Yeah. That's why that deer was down. That's why those turkeys were down. Yeah. We use it all the time, but we don't see it when the enemy's trying to get us.
No. We're fooled. Like I said, the ultimate deception. I always say, I've written several times, I spoke about it, that Satan is probably one of the best hunters there is because he can deceive and you fall right in his trap. And if we look at our own lives and we're honest, we've all been there. Yeah. But the good thing is there is truth. There is truth to go back to. And as I'm going to talk tonight about how we need to go back to the burdens that we get rid of. When we come to Christ, we get rid of burdens, and we can get rid of them when we come to Christ, and because of what He did. But we keep going back there for some reason. We go back to that turkey, that decoy, like the second gobbler, and we know that we shouldn't, but we go back to him, and it's it's hard to keep going. It's hard to function when we all keep going back to those things. Then I call them burdens, and Ephesians we talk. Hebrews 10:1 and 2 is it? Anyhow, talk about that we drop those burdens, and then the next verse, in the next part of the verse, it's and the sins that so easily entangle us.
Yes,
that's what we're going to talk about tonight, and how if we don't do that, we're caught. entangled.
Yeah.
And we have to drop those things. And
it
Christ,
started
and that's
with
what
the
Christ
lie.
did.
Yeah.
It comes with a lie.
Yeah.
Now I got to change that, add that to my talk tonight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So tell us how the blood trail, and I followed a blood trail before.
Yeah.
And so I know what they look like, and we're not trying to gross anybody out,
No.
but it's a part of hunting. And
It's part of life.
Yeah. I can remember my daughter the first time, she was like, I want to follow this blood trail. And we're like, we got to wait. And she was like, I don't want this thing to suffer.
Right.
And so how does the blood trail relate to the gospel or faith?
And the hunt on this video is actually an elk hunt for just a world-class elk. And if anybody wants, you can go to my Facebook page for a little donate. I send them out whether someone donates or not. But
No. Tab people, you got to donate.
Yeah.
So I support you.
But those, I'll send them the DVD. It's and some small pocket devotionals for any donation. But so this guy calls in again. This big bull elk comes in on video.
And this is in Colorado.
On the ranch on Cielo Vista Ranch is what it is, which means view of heaven.
Yeah,
and
Cielo Vista.
I'll tell you that's an amazing story about the whole thing. But anyhow, we comes in and it gets shot, and the video follows this blood trail, and it's not an easy blood trail, and the bull doesn't go that far, but it's in thick mountainsides, steep mountainsides, 10,000 feet up, and so as they're following that, we're talking on the video about that loss of blood. The more blood that it means death. That blood, without the blood, there is no life, right? Because that bull loses enough blood, he can't live. So without that blood, it means death. Well, that relates exactly to what Christ did. Without Christ shedding his blood, there is no life. I mean, life beyond. First of all, there's not life abundantly, as we talk about in the Bible, as the Bible talks about. But there is no life beyond this. There's eternal death or hell. Mm-hmm. We don't like to talk about hell anymore, it seems like, but there's hell for those that don't trust in the blood, and that's what Christ shed on the cross. So that's what the blood means. The blood to me means every time I track an animal, I know the more blood there is, the more lost blood. That animal doesn't have blood, it's going to die. But with the blood, it's going to live. So that's what Christ's blood did for us.
Wow, he shed his blood so that we could live.
Right?
The same way we track an animal, and we live to hunt and we hunt to live is what I've heard a man say before, right?
Michigan guy too.
Yeah,
originally.
But that's what brings life. So the loss of that blood brings life to me, but it's death, and there was a death that was required. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So we just my son Nick is pretty quick-witted.
Yeah,
and
quick-tongued.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We were speaking. Actually, I was speaking at a youth hunt in Wisconsin, a youth turkey hunt, and Nick brought Chloe, his daughter, his Chloe over there.
Chloe.
And there was a woman who was going to talk about this. Took an orange. I don't know if you've seen this. Put an orange in water, and it floats. Take an orange to peel off, and you set it in the water, and it sinks. Without that protection around it, which is Christ around us, we're going to sink unless we're surrounded. Nick went up and told her, and I didn't know this. Nick went up and told her. I don't know if you've ever heard this or not. Nick goes up and says, "Did you know that if you leave that and don't touch it for 3 days, it'll float again? It rises up. That orange in 3 days will rise up again." What a great example of salvation and what Christ did for us. Literally, that's true.
I would never even know to throw an orange in water.
I don't know who came up. I didn't come up with that.
It was probably someone in the UP who doesn't have cable.
Didn't have anything else to do.
Whatever.
Lots of kids and oranges floating in the water.
No, that's good. So let's pause here just for a second. HighImpactOutdoors.org, or you can find Dean Hulce on Dean Hulce, Hulce on Facebook. And can people get your book there?
Yeah. Just
like if they want the book for them or they want a book for a friend.
HighImpactOutdoors.org is where to order. I mean, you can get a hold of me on email. You can get a hold of me on Facebook. Whatever, I can arrange for it.
Yeah, but I'm going to encourage you. If you're an outdoorsman or there's an outdoorsman or woman in your family, you want to get this book.
Great
you
gifts.
Want to, in this, I don't want to make this awkward, but I am committed to helping, especially people that are in full-time ministry, and now you're in full-time ministry because you guys made the decision just recently, this is what we're doing. In fact, let's just pause right there. How big of a faith step was that for you?
For me, it wasn't as big a step as it probably was for my wife.
But you're one flesh. So
but we're one flesh, so yes, absolutely. But you know what? This year, it's been a big I shouldn't say it's not a big faith step, but we had total confidence. You say total confidence until you go a month or two without a check. Then you start. But God has been so good. I've not had a paycheck. I did some writing for a ministry a year ago, and I've not had a steady paycheck since November. And Linda even says, I don't know how it happens, but every month the money's there to pay all the bills.
Wow.
And, I told you I've got some hip problems going on, and our medical bills have been $6,000 since January 1st. And we've paid all our bills, plus we're paying on those medical bills and never missing. So God is proving himself steady. So it is
essentially
it is a
you're
step.
living on what we would say in the Christian ghetto world, you're living on support.
We are.
Like you have
That's
donors.
a terrible word.
That's a terrible word.
But
it's partner ministry.
Yeah. It is.
And bro, I've done it.
You've lived it. Yeah.
I've lived it before we ever moved to the Tabernacle.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things to say. God's called me to this thing. And for me, it was similar to you. It's like, hey, God's called me to play soccer and share Jesus. And you think that's ridiculous because you don't believe soccer's a real sport. We won't go there. But I was doing that mostly outside of America.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Hey, would you support or would you invest in this ministry? And we got people that did that. And that was so hard because it was so humbling. And I remember the first time I was kind of up there. You were in the middle of this. It's look, we've always had other jobs and this, but God's calling us to do this. It isn't so Dean can go on.
I don't hunt.
You don't hunt
How
anymore.
often do I hunt? Yeah.
You're guiding dudes like me or me and my kid or my daughters or whatever. And but you've been living off of what God's people provide, off of guiding and off of the books and however else God provides. Speaking engagements. You're speaking with us tonight.
And I do some side jobs just because God puts them in front of me, so I do them. And that's, Paul still made some tents.
Yeah, he made some tents because he had skills.
When you have to. And God's given me skills to do some things. Me
can
and the
people,
legend.
You and the legend, Can people invest in your ministry like by going online?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, is there a donate button?
On my website, there's a donate button.
Yeah.
And we'd love that. My wife would really love it. She pays the bills.
Yeah, 100%. But our church does that.
You do.
But I'm encouraging those people that listen, hey, if this is touching your heart, this is something, because you have big dreams, you have big ideas.
Oh, yeah.
So right now it's guiding, it's writing, it's speaking. What other kind of irons ministry-wise you have in the fire?
One of our main things we love to do is care for the pastors, and if someone says, hey, I want to donate, I've got a pastor.
Why? Pastors only work one day a week. That's what you always say.
I know.
Yeah.
And sometimes
who cares about pastors?
Sometimes I feel bad.
Why do pastors need to be in the woods, Dean?
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
Sorry, I've also learned your humor, which I embrace fully.
That's right.
Yeah, you fit in with our staff.
I was with Martin a few minutes. When he knew I was cutting on you, he said, yeah, and he's one of my favorite people already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, as you know, 90% of people that start as pastors don't finish as pastors. It's a 10%. And part of it, some of those people should have never been pastors. They were pushed there. But part of it is it's a stressful job. It's not one day a week, someone that only goes to church. But the more I spend time with my pastor, who's become one of my best friends, the more I realize it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, because someone's got to be there when someone loses a loved one. Someone's got to be there when a child is sick and a family doesn't know what to do, or when someone signed divorce papers and sent them to you. Someone's got to be there, and that's the pastor. And if it's not, either he's not doing his job. But anyhow, there's a lot of stress in that. There's a lot of time where you just need to be away, because pastors, that's the reasons pastors fail. And I we see some pretty big failures on TV and the news, and but some of them just are sad. It's hard. How do we do? You're doing God's work. I'm doing God's work. As I said, all of us that know Christ are in full-time ministry.
Right.
But a pastor's carrying it,
and he's got a target on his back.
The only one harder than a pastor's life is his wife.
Yeah.
It really is, because they've got a target from both sides.
You're Darcy's new best friend.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, a pastor, his wife has got to support him and fight everything else off that attacks him. Yeah. And that's a hard thing. And she has to listen to it. So anyhow, pastors, that's why we do this. Pastors, I got the lease in South Dakota, and and that's a harder one for me, but because I carry most of the load price-wise when I do that, it's expense for me. But I'll tell you what, I get a week of one-on-one, 5 days with a pastor that can just dump, and it usually takes a few days, and pretty soon, that's what we did in Colorado. The legend is great at that, by the way. He doesn't say much. But he's open for a pastor to just dump and say, here's what I'm struggling with. And it's not big struggles. It's little things, but it's enough little things that
But he's been carrying it by himself.
Oh yeah. That's the burdens that we carry. That's tonight's message.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. That's one I'd love to do more of that. The other thing is I want to do more. I want to do some of my own podcasts and share these stories. I mean, I got 4,000 or so written, and lots of people don't read anymore, but they'll turn on.
They'll listen.
Guys are at work with their radio going when they should be working.
Yeah.
Or their headphones.
Well, that's actually something that I've read about, and guys like Britton have helped me understand. It isn't just guys or people don't read it anymore. Radio's dead.
Yeah.
Radio, there's some people that still kind of play the radio, but now everyone's playing everything off their phone. It's access when I want it. And you and I talked about this just a couple weeks ago, we never believed that our Tab podcast would amount to anything. And I remember just sharing a little bit about the stories, like Dean, sitting at your table, you need one of these.
Yeah.
And you could read your devotional once. You got 4,000 of them. You could record a bunch and then just take a vacation.
By the way, they sounded better in my headphones than they do in my head when you read it.
Oh, yeah, did it? Yeah. Well, you just need somebody with a voice like Matt Hughes. He's a legend over there. He could just do it in his Matthew McConaughey voice. All right.
I've just always been told I got a face for radio.
But I don't know about my voice. Well, hey, they kind of want to see the guy who's got the.
Yeah.
So, so you got plans for the ministry?
I really want to grow it. I want to reach more people. I mean, life is short.
Yeah.
We've got it, and I believe our time here is potentially really short. And I think Christ is waiting until the last one comes to him before he comes back. And wouldn't it be great to lead the last one?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I can't wait. First thing I want to do is when I walk someday through the pearly gates, our goal is to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. But then I can't wait. I believe because there's going to be rewards, and there's going to be, we're going to go through a judgment which we're going to see ourselves in not a good light sometimes. But we're also going to, I pray that God's going to say, look at the difference that what was made.
Mm.
And I want to see, because we don't know. You don't know as a pastor, or even on this podcast, hopefully somebody's hearing something today and say, that's me. I'm carrying those burdens. I don't need to. But I can't wait to say, here it is. I was at a funeral. It it had no hunting relation to it all. But this young guy comes up. No, he's young. Young's getting to be a relative term.
Yeah.
He's probably
younger than you.
Probably 40.
Yeah.
And he comes up. He says, do you remember me? And I said, boy, you look familiar, but I don't. And he said, it was his brother had died, a young guy. And he said, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was counseling at a Bible camp, the same one, Nick. Well, Lake Ellen, you were there.
Yeah, Lake Ellen camp.
And I led him to the Lord. And I forgot.
Wow.
I forgot that. And when I speak, and a couple of years ago, I spoke years ago, and a guy came to me, and I didn't know anybody had come to Christ that night. Nobody had said it. And he comes up, he said, hey, my son-in-law accepted Christ that night when you spoke. And that's what keeps us going, as ministry people. Mm-hmm. It's obviously not for the money.
Yeah.
But I think Linda and I, we love our life. We love living not knowing for sure when the next, we always know where our meal's coming from because we got a freezer full of venison and other stuff there that's left over from the fall. We always know we're going to have food. Well, we don't know that, but lots of times we don't know where the next bill's going to be paid. I just joked with somebody and I said, it used to be we got excited. Hey, we can afford to go do this. We can afford to buy that. Now it's, man, we can pay this bill this month.
Yeah.
But that's an exciting way to live because we're relying on God to do it.
Yeah.
And God's people.
And he hasn't failed you yet.
He has never failed me. You wouldn't, you would believe the stories.
Yeah.
If I showed an accountant my life, he said, there's no way you can live.
Yeah.
And God does it. So
you're out there living the dream.
I really am.
Your
honestly.
passion from all the way back as a young boy. And God, see, that's where our stories are similar because we both like talking.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be a preacher.
We both should have been salesmen.
Yeah,
I was a salesman.
No, preachers. That's what we do.
I know.
But God has a way of getting his way.
Yeah.
So he gave you that passion, that UP passion, put you in that family. And there's a lot of guys and girls that would say, man, they're living the dream. Now there's the hard edge to it. There's the faith nights where you and your wife are praying and saying, how do we pay for this bill?
Yeah.
And, I know that, not just the Tabernacle, you have other people that just are investors or partners in your ministry, but you're waiting. COVID was hard.
Oh yeah,
because there's a lot of dudes that were afraid to get COVID sitting alone in a deer stand. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that out loud, but
it's true.
there were people that didn't, venture out even to hunt, which is one of the most solitary things you can do, except for the table. But man, I just love what you're doing. And from the very beginning, when we found out that this was going to be a full-time ministry, without even blinking, everyone on our decision-making leadership team were like, we want to get behind high-impact outdoors because it just matches the stereotypical Northern Michigan man. And even someone who doesn't hunt, it's like, they respect it because they kind of see it. And, as my son will hear some outrageous, and not trying to be political, but some outrageous climate change rule that'll come out. And, my son will be like, or something that is trying to curb hunting or I can't believe anyone would shoot the white-tailed deer. And, my son sat around enough tables that I hear him telling someone else, man, if we didn't hunt deer in Northern Michigan, we'd have more automobile deaths that we would know what to do with because they're populating at a rate, or he'll say, oh, they passed another law from their high rise and and then he'll say this horrible phrase. I don't think I taught it to him, but he'll say these citiots.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah, these citiots, that have, because he loves the outdoors. Yeah. And one of the reasons he loves the outdoors, God's creation, is because of you. Yeah. You're another one of those people that's helped him love it more.
And God puts us in those positions, and too many times we miss the opportunity to share what's really important in these things. Yeah. I got to tell you a quick story.
Go for it. No, go for it.
I got to tell you this story, and I don't think I've ever shared it with you. Before the Tab came on as a full-time partner with us, it was December a couple of years, maybe 3 years ago. I was literally sitting in a tree stand in Alabama, and I get a text. My wife sends me a picture of a check. No clue. Came out of the blue. You guys, the church sent us $3,000. And this was a pretty rough time. I probably shouldn't. Well, I had friends that were paying for wanted me to come to Alabama and hunt with them. So it was. So I called my wife, and I'm talking to her from a tree stand, which I never do, and we're both crying on the phone. And you know what? So many times, people will say, "Hey, I want to do this for you," and lots of times say, "No."
Oh, no. Yeah.
But you know what? What I've learned is as I'm giving to others now and people say, no, you're stealing a blessing. There's so much blessing in giving and receiving both. And you can't outgive God. That's Linda and I mean, we give away more books. We give away as many hunts as
You're always
sell.
trying to give stuff away.
Yeah, that's okay.
And I'm over here going, no, you need to sell that, bro.
But
you didn't pay attention to business class up there.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I guarantee I was looking out the window at this squirrel in a tree or something when that stuff was. And but that's true. But we've got blessings in giving. We got blessings in receiving, and too often we steal those blessings from one another.
Yeah.
And
I got a story for you, and I could have probably saved it for off the air, but I want to share it because there's always a cynic that's listening. It's like, oh, it must be nice. That's like the Michigan, envy, to begin whatever they're going to say. If you have a truck and, a new truck that you saved and took in pop cans to buy, someone's going to go, must be nice. You know? Years ago, when my wife and I were living on support, the president of our ministry was looking at what's called a support account, or how many sponsors that I'd basically gotten so that I could go share the gospel around the world, right? And it had to get X amount of dollars to pay the bills. And he said, John, I want you to take a class from the Navigators. And it was like a self-learning class. You had a little workbook, and I'm going through this thing. And it was the first time I'd ever done that. And essentially it was the biblical basis for what you're doing. So if you're out there and you're saying, oh, man, I wish I could just hunt and fish and guide and do all that kind of stuff and have people. First of all, it's a calling. And Dean, I believe the calling on you and Linda's life is real because I've seen the changed lives that come from it, right? So not everyone can do this, but it is a calling, and it's an honor to be called, and it's a privilege to use what you love, but it's also humbling, unbelievably humbling to do that because of the faith journey that you're on. Yeah. And the two prime examples that this Navigator Bible training that I went through had for the reason we are partners with Dean and Linda Hulce. The reason that we're partners with Gabe and Brandon Hirth that were here on 2 weeks ago, missionaries to Thailand, there's no different. The biblical examples, first is Paul, which, people say, well, Paul made tents. I had a mentor say, Paul made tents one time, one place. And that was in the wealthiest city that he was planning a church in. And he believed the reason that was the only place Paul made tents is because God and Paul didn't want those people to think he was after their money. So he went into a place where he could be a business owner like they did, or work in business. That's the only place he made tents that the Bible tells us. All the other places he was supported by churches. In fact, he challenged me to read the book of Philippians. The Philippians is a thank you letter to a supporting church. That's what it is, right?
Right. Well, and
Dean, I hope you silence that phone when you're hunting.
I thought I silenced it once before.
No, come on, I got to give you a hard time. So Paul is an example of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But the other example is Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
The gaggle of men and women that followed him. Mary, Martha, Lazarus, Mary Magdalene, which is a different Mary. All of those people invested in Jesus. In fact, most scholars believe the vast majority of Jesus' donors during his ministry on earth were women. And so I'm sitting there going, man, if it's good enough for Paul, if it's good enough for the Son of God, it's biblical, it's right. And so it is our privilege, and I'm saying this out loud to you on the podcast, it is our privilege to invest in your ministry, and I want to encourage other people to do it. If God lays it on your heart, do it. Figure out a way you can be involved. The other thing I wanted to, I got a list of questions that we got to go through here as we wrap up, but sorry, you.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that the difference, what people don't understand, Les, is they're investing in me. They're in my ministry. What we're really doing is they're investing in souls in heaven. Because if I can't afford to do what I do, God's going to do his work. But God's put me in a place to do this and to reach sportsmen and sportswomen and others. But there's a reason that if you give, it really goes to winning souls. I mean, if it was just for me to go out and do what I wouldn't much. At a time, I'd have much rather just gone hunting. There's nothing I'd rather do than what I do now.
Yeah,
I go sit outside once in a while, but I'm always taking somebody else out. And we share the gospel around that table. I travel and share the gospel, and I love what I do.
Yeah. I'm still remembering one of my best memories, or two of my best memories, was one bringing Sophie. She was a senior in high school. We hadn't seen a thing in Buckley, and there was a spot that opened up, and there were all men in the bunkhouse. And you said, yeah, sure, bring her. We'll find her a couch or something. And she and I roomed with Matt Stevens and his dad, who's almost 90 years old.
Jerry,
Yeah, and she didn't get a thing. She had a great time.
Yeah.
And as we're driving back across the she saw a lot of deer, but she didn't see a buck. She wasn't there for doe. She was there for a buck. She didn't have the other license. And I was sad because I got a buck on the very last night. And I was like, Lord, I wanted Sophie to get one, And I'm driving across the bridge, and I said, hey, would you go back? She goes, in a heartbeat. She would go back in a heartbeat. And the second one was my son, when he shot that spike up there during the youth hunt. I said, hey, he's a little, he doesn't like to be the center of attention and this or that, but he does kind of want to gut this deer, but he needs someone to lead him through it. And you're like, oh yeah, we'll give him his space. And your son Nick was like, Benjamin, come on out, get a knife and let's gut this deer. And your whole family pulled up lawn chairs and watched, even though he didn't want an audit.
Yeah.
But we still have video of that, and that was a rite of passage for him. That was huge, and the conversations that he and I got to have in the deer stand, the conversation my son got to have with your son Nick about Jesus and the relationship he built there that carried on, to this day. So, we got to go because you're going to have to get some rest before tonight. Tonight's fight night, so we're recording this before the fight night. But what's the biggest fish you ever caught? Biggest fish or best fish?
Biggest fish was probably 100-pound halibut off the coast of Alaska.
Wow.
Best fish was probably almost a high 20s Dolly Varden when full color.
A Dolly Varden?
Is
that ocean fish?
It's a trout. Basically, it's a trout. It looks like a huge brook trout, but in fall they're bright orange. They're gorgeous. One of the prettiest fish you'll ever see.
Are they good eating?
Delicious.
Yeah.
Delicious.
What's the worst fish you ever ate? What is the kind of fish you catch and you just don't want to eat?
You know, I don't know.
You'll eat them all.
Yeah, I'm a youper.
Would you eat a sturgeon though?
I would. I would love
really?
to eat sturgeon. I never have, but I would.
Oh,
yeah. No, I would eat almost anything.
Craziest hunt you've ever been on?
Alligators in Texas. I mean, in Florida.
What were we shooting them with?
With a bow.
You were bow hunting an alligator?
At night on airboats. You remember the old Johnny Quest cartoons?
Yes, I've seen. I know an airboat is.
We were playing Johnny Quest in these backwater lakes and stuff, and I shot two and had 2 tags. Shot 2 in 2 nights with the bow, and you bring them up on this line, and bring them up to the boat, and then you bang stick them in the back of the neck, and
wow.
And so you bring a almost 10-foot alligator up and lay it in the boat.
How much meat is in a 10-foot alligator? How many pounds?
Oh, I probably filled a 48-quart cooler with two alligators.
Did you eat it all, or did you give a lot away?
Oh no, that was eaten at camp.
Really?
Actually, there was probably a little bit eaten at a game feed, but the rest was.
I've had gator jerky, but not like. Is there gator steak?
No, it's deep fried nuggets. Usually is what we do.
Deep fried nuggets. Matt, are you going for deep fried nugget gator? He likes. Yeah,
I'll try anything once.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's probably the craziest. I probably saw 300 gators in a night. You get a gator, that's as long as your boat, right up next to the boat, and I saw a couple that scared me that I couldn't get a shot at. They were like 15 feet long. That was an amazing.
Do you keep any part of the gator as a trophy? Like I know I've seen claws and teeth.
I had the head done, and actually I donated it to a woman that went from, kept it for quite a while. My wife didn't care for it a lot. She's not a reptile person. And this woman would go and teach reptile classes to schools, and she didn't have a gator head. And I said, you need to take this with you so kids can see it.
Wow. What is the largest animal that you have harvested, that you've hunted and been successful in North America?
The largest?
Is it elk?
Elk, yeah.
Elk?
Yeah, I've never done moose or caribou. I'd like to, but I just soon go.
Really? You've never hunted a moose?
Huh. Never have.
Yeah.
Never really had the opportunity, and probably most unusual. I did mountain lion, which was fun, with a pistol, and that was delicious eating, by the way.
Cat?
It tasted like good pork.
Matt, what are you thinking?
I'm out.
Really?
Matt was with you heart and soul on gator.
You need a gator, but you won't eat a mountain lion.
A cat, man. There's something about cat.
No, it was delicious.
Oh, there's a cat.
I don't know how often you're getting cat when you're eating at a restaurant.
That's true.
I don't know. We've talked about going to that sushi place.
Yep.
I don't want to make any accusations, but bear. Have you ever hunt bear?
Yeah, lots of times.
Brown.
Never hunted
brown
brown bear, but there's another story. We don't have time.
No.
I was charged on Kodiak with a brown bear. And
well, wait. Who says we don't have time? This is our podcast. We do whatever we want. Yeah.
You only
so
work
you're
one day a week.
charged. Well, this is the second day.
Yeah. Oh.
So you were charged by brown bear. Where were you hunting?
We were hunting black-tailed deer, and I'd shot one the day before, and we went back up to the same area. We got up there, and you can't leave any meat at a kill site in Alaska. It's illegal. Very expensive. You get caught. So we had completely dismantled this, but left all the bones and some blood on it.
Yeah.
Come back next morning, and all the bones are in little chips and gone.
So there's like a gut pile there, I assume?
Gut pile, yeah. Anyhow, we were going to hunt above. We went for a long walk. And tag elders, UP tag elders or lower Michigan tag elders, they're the size of a baseball bat on a big one. These are as big as your thigh. The only place you can get through the tangled is bear trails. So you can smell bears. There's bear droppings, 10 times the size of your head. And tracks is bigger than my foot, bigger than Nick's foot, actually.
Oh, he's got a giant feet,
16.
man. He's a hobbit.
Yeah. Anyhow, coming back down off the mountain, I'm in a creek bottom, and I jump a deer to make the story short, but this deer runs up the hill. Well, black-tailed deer are very susceptible to calling. So I decided to call it like a distressed fawn, because I didn't see what the deer was, if it was a buck or doe, and just saw a deer run. I started going, meh, meh. Second later, I hear something behind me. I turn around and look and see something brown coming through the woods. And I got a young guy with me that was working at the lodge where I was working. And I see something brown, and this deer jumps over the hill from in front of us, lands at my feet. And I hear this behind me, and I look, and something brown's coming. So I get turned around and get my gun thinking it's another deer coming. Well, when it comes through the brush about 40 yards away, it's a huge brown bear coming full speed. Whoof, 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 as he's coming. And there's a creek about 15 yards from me, maybe not quite that far. And I'm starting to yell, scream, bear, bear, hoping he would turn and leave. The guy's with me, and he's looking at this deer at my feet, standing there. He's thinking, what an idiot this guy is. It's obviously a deer. It's standing right there. He doesn't know
You're
it's coming
screaming
behind us.
bear.
I'm screaming bear.
The brown bears, isn't that the longest or the large? Or
Polar bear's bigger, but
polar bear's bigger.
These things, their head is as big as the end of a 55-gallon drum.
And they can be 8, 9, 10 feet tall.
10 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
Or more.
Or more.
Anyhow, this guy, so I'm still, the bear's just coming full speed. And I'm thinking, it happens so fast. Your mind works. There's no way that evolution is possible when you think about how fast and the decisions you can make. We'd all been dead years ago.
Yeah.
The world would say we've been dead millions of years ago, but we'd have been dead thousands of years
Yeah.
ago. Anyhow, and my mind tells me if he hits this creek by us, which is 15 yards or a little closer, I've got to shoot. And I'm on him, and I practice. My dad taught us to shoot moving targets when we were kids. He'd roll tires with targets.
I remember you
in
saying
them.
that. Yeah.
So I'm on him. I'm on his head as he's coming towards me, and I'm screaming. And the guy finally hears that bear hit the creek. And when he does, he spins, and he pulls the trigger on his gun and shoots right in front of my foot and hits
Your buddy.
my buddy. He's not really my buddy, but
Well,
the guy
you're with. That's
he
unsafe.
panicked.
Yeah.
I mean, he panicked and shot right into the ground. And then he starts yelling, I didn't shoot him because I'm ready to finish him off.
You're like, you almost shot me.
Yeah, well, I didn't think of that at the time, but it sprayed dirt up on me. But that bear stopped at less than 15 yards. And he's looking at us like, is it worth the meal or what is that, and finally turns and leaves. But that was probably the best and worst day in the woods. That was one of the best things ever happened to me in the woods. What a great experience it was. I mean, who can say they did that and lived through it? And the bear lived too.
And everyone lived.
Yeah.
Now, did you beat your buddy for almost taking you out with a...
No, my guy, the guy I was with, I've never seen him since then, by the way. And we went up this straight bank. I don't know how we got up there. We got out of that valley in a hurry. And he was a smoker. I might still be a smoker. Didn't have any cigarettes with him that day. And he's patting every pocket for an hour looking for a cigarette to get through the day.
Oh, my goodness.
And but it was honestly one of the best experiences I've ever.
Because that's fight or flight.
Oh, it was.
I mean, it's either you're and
he was going to die or I was.
Yeah, but flight is stupid.
That you couldn't,
because there's nothing that a brown bear is going to stop.
They run like a racehorse. They run short distance as fast as a racehorse.
Wow.
So there's no way I was
So
outrunning.
it was complete self-defense.
It was, and it was a great experience.
What's the biggest trophy you've ever shot, or a member of your family?
Well, Micah, my grandson, was invited on a hunt 2 years ago. It's a hunting preserve.
Yeah.
And he shot a 90-point whitetail. Have you seen that mount?
90. I think
it's got
I have.
90 points on it.
Yeah, wasn't that
It's ugly.
a?
It's ugly. It's in the bunk in my house in the living room. My best.
So it's like a mutant.
It is.
Yeah, it's a mutant. Yeah.
Of course, my wife outdoes us with free range whitetail. She's killed the last buck she scored 172 Boone and Crockett with a 7.5 inch drop tine. I've killed some good trophies, but
so this is
I've
a
been
full
outdone.
confession. I've sat around the table and I've heard people say stuff like that. It was a what again?
172.
172 Boone and Crockett. I know when they say Boone and Crockett, that's a big deal, and I think the higher the number, the better. It's something having to do with some sort of measurements.
It does.
And then there's something about a drop tine. I just sit there and go, yeah, man, legit. I have no idea what that means, but I know it's a big freaking deer.
Is a unit of measure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Named after them.
It's
actually
and it's a way of measuring.
You measure the beam length, tine length, the circumference.
We won't bore the listeners because they all know it. Yeah. I don't. What I was just telling you is we just go, Boone and Crockett. They don't taste any better.
Dude, I play the guitar.
Yeah. He has a Boone and Crockett
all six
guitar.
strings. I play.
Really? He's got Boone
on
and
a
Crockett.
12 string. He got 6 down so far.
He's a legend right over there. So Linda's got the biggest trophy in the house of free range stuff.
Free range, yeah.
For the guy that's like, man, I'm going to just experience God in the wild, and he's going to go and buy his first hunting rifle, and then he's going to take classes. What's your go-to caliber? If you have one caliber to survive in North America, what's your go-to?
In all of North America?
Yeah, just to shoot whatever you want the most versatile.
300 Win Mag.
Okay, that's the most versatile.
For deer, we almost, Nick or Micah and Linda and I all shoot a 7mm 08. And it's that's kind of an all around for deer, and we've killed bear and stuff with them.
Yeah. So the 300. So yours is 300 Win Mag.
If I had to buy one to hunt everything, moose, whatever,
Yeah.
protect my life of a charging brown bear.
So your preference: crossbow, compound bow, recurve bow, or old school bow, or do it with your bare hands.
I don't like hand to hand combat with animals. If I
Okay.
run an animal over, I could come to tears, believe it or not.
Oh wow!
And I've
Okay.
killed hundreds and hundreds of animals. But
Yeah.
I love the I love the recurve bow. If I had a
Recurve.
choice for me, my shoulders don't do a lot well anymore. And actually, I prefer my rifle hunting over. Most
bow,
people would
yeah.
say I love to sit in a bow with you get the stillness. Well, everybody else goes hunting. I go sit on the hill and just watch anyhow. So
Yeah,
I
you
get,
just
I get
watch,
that
yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
So.
So no, that's legit. Out of all the wild things that you can eat in what God's created here in North America, like what is your best wild game meal? Like that is the tastiest. That's just, that's the way.
We love
Can you
bear.
do that?
We love bear, but you know what? My tastiest is fresh tanner crab out of the North Pacific. Because we would
Really?
pull crab pots, and I love crab. Didn't need butter. It was so sweet. Boil them and eat them. That's my favorite. If someone said, "Hey, I can ship you anything right now to eat," I'd send me some crab.
Gotcha. The last time I was in the UP, there was a flock of birds that was making a crazy racket. And my son and I hadn't seen any. Well, we saw 2 trophies, but we didn't see all we saw was a little bit of their horns peeking over the ridge, and they were feeding on the other side and never came across. And then we saw doe, and we were just frustrated. And these birds in front of us, it was during youth hunt in August of 2021. They were just they were these cranes, these sandhill cranes. And my son was like, "Dad, if those birds don't shut up, I'm going to shoot one of them." And I'm like, "Bro, I think we have to have a license." And,
Yeah.
I mean, he was kidding.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, please don't we didn't shoot any sandhill crane. But then we learned something about the sandhill crane that I don't think maybe everyone else in Michigan knows that
No.
I don't know. But when I got back to your table,
Yeah.
I was like, "Man, those birds, these and sandhill crane." And then you taught me something about sandhill cranes.
Ribeye from the sky.
Why are they called the ribeye from the sky?
Because they're not like like turkey breasts. They're actually dark. They look like beef.
They're red meat, right?
They're red meat.
It's a bird, but it's red
Yeah.
meat.
Yeah, and believe it or not, you look at those birds. They're 4 feet, 5 feet high, whatever they are. There's hardly any meat on them. I mean, a breast is like a big chicken breast or a small turkey breast, but it's red. And if you marinate it and grill it, it tastes like steak.
Steak that
Yeah.
flies.
And there's a lot of states you can legally hunt them.
Yeah, but not in Michigan.
Not in
Or
Michigan, no.
you can only do it with a crop license or something.
Actually,
like,
we did have, there's some farmers that they do a tremendous amount of damage. They'll walk right down a row and pick
everything. Yeah.
everything. Matter of fact, I know a potato farmer said that they walk down and they pick at the potatoes that are coming up out of, the ones that are right on the surface.
Yeah.
And we have gotten some breasts from some farmers that way. But if you ever get a chance, it's
Sandhill
worth
crane,
eating. Yeah.
ribeye in the sky. So you can check out more stuff with Dean Hulce at highimpactoutdoors.org. What's one way the Tab family, your Tab family, your church away from home,
Mm-hmm.
or one of your churches away from home, because I know you speak a lot of churches. What's one way we can pray for you in this season right now, 2022, summertime with Britain gone?
On vacation again.
Yeah, no, he's
No,
working.
he's not.
No, he's working. What's one way we can pray for you?
I think the biggest thing for us, and it has to do with financially, but is really peace in no matter what happens, no matter where we're at, that we're confident what God has. And family, it's hard for us. Our families are growing and moving, and now our son with 3 of our grandkids is thinking about moving to another Bible camp out of the area. That's really hard for us. We're family, we're family oriented. Yeah. Everybody comes together, and that's really hard. So just peace, just in general. And that sometimes it has to do with financial, sometimes it doesn't. It's just, that's life.
Yeah. Well, we share the same way, because not everyone's thinking about, everyone wants the pastor to be there or someone on the ministry staff to be there. Not everyone's always thinking about who's caring for them in the same way that you're thinking about caring for guys like me and guys and men and women that are on our staff. We want to be the church that, it's not like you're not saying, "Hey, help us conquer the world with High Impact Outdoors." It's, "Hey, would you pray for my family?"
Yeah.
So that's something we surely can do. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you're just dying to share, or that
we
that
did
you
a
have
pretty
for
good
us?
job.
Yeah.
Not that I can think of. I appreciate you guys. Like I said, it's changed our life, and that when that check comes, and there's one or two other smaller checks that come, but when they come, it's a big lift. It's not so much what the amount is in there, but it's a lift So no, I appreciate you guys. I'm looking forward to tonight because there are a lot of guys that have hunted with me that are probably going to be there that I don't see but once a year. And this is family for us,
Cool.
You guys got a free reign in my place. If there's an open bed, there's, and we look forward to that. Honestly, that's not like it's ever a stress for us, ever where there's any ever problem with that. It actually lifts us.
Matt, you think we could ever get Vicky up to the UP?
I've had Vicky up to the UP.
I mean, all the way to Powers. Would she shoot?
That would be.
Would you take a?
Where no Vicky has gone before.
Hello, I'm here to hunt. Yes. Hello, Dean. Yeah.
We've never had anybody with an English accent.
Ooh.
She's probably more familiar with a fox hunt.
Do you do fox hunts?
No, never done a fox hunt.
I've
I've had South Africans that had kind of an English accent.
Yeah,
they conquered them and they lost them. It's kind of like us here in the States. They had us and they lost us.
South Africa's like the UP for the Brit. Now, you may or may not know this, but Matthew Hughes is a lord. He's a laird.
Oh, you're bringing that up.
Yeah.
Really?
He is a landowner in Scotland.
Oh, really?
And his wife bought him land. And so anyone who's a landowner in Scotland is, by law, legally able to assume the title of Lord.
Small L.
No,
Yes.
well, not the Lord. No, that's a different Lord.
No.
It's Lord Matthew Corey Hughes. He owns property in Scotland. It's a foot by 1 foot.
Yes.
And you can't hunt it, or can you hunt it?
I'm not sure about that. I probably
If you
don't
can
own,
hunt it, I'll buy it.
Probably no mineral rights either.
Probably no mineral rights. Sorry.
Go straight.
Am I going to
down.
get in trouble for putting on? You can edit that out if you
Yeah,
don't
we
want
may.
it. Yeah. But no, you got any questions for Dean? We good?
I don't. Fascinating stuff.
Well, he'll eat what we kill.
Okay.
I'm hoping to be up there again this year. I'm interested in
As
South
well.
Dakota. We got to talk about how that, and we'll do that off the air. But thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you for your ministry. Thank you for living on faith. Thank you for letting the Tab partner with you. I'm excited about tonight. We're going to eat some food, and we're going to hear what God's laid on your heart. HighImpactOutdoors.org. Dean and Linda, they're in Powers, Michigan. You can even stop in and say hi, but just let
Call
them know you're
first.
coming first. Yeah, so come on, let's not be silly.
They wouldn't find us anyway.
Exactly. Britton's going to be sad because if he was here, he'd be talking ad nauseum about Oklahoma, and we know what that is all about. Dean, do you like brats?
I love brats.
Okay.
We're
So-
close to Wisconsin. That's where they come from.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Well, do they have Dublin General Store?
No.
Probably not. There's a Dublin General Store down here that has ridiculous brats. I've had the jalapeno brat, which is amazing. Have you had jalapeno?
Yep.
I had one that was cheddar and potato.
Really?
It was like cheddar potato brat. It was amazing. It
Yeah.
was like, I don't know, it was cheddar. They said I don't know where the potato
I've had
came
potato
in.
sausage, so it's probably something.
It
like
was
that.
amazing. I mean, it was meat, but there was potato
Yeah.
in it. The one I'm still hanging on for, and I haven't had it because apparently they brought us some, but Britton ate them all, or they never made it across the mountain from Manistee. As I've heard, there's a blueberry brat.
Really?
I love blueberries and I love brats. I have never had them together. I'm about to try that. So
I should have cherry brats here in Traverse City.
yeah,
area.
cherry. This is a confession. I'm not big in the cherries.
Yeah.
I like chocolate covered cherries, dark
Yeah,
chocolate.
I don't.
But I'm not
Yeah.
cherries like but blueberries. I'm just saying.
Next time down.
Yeah. So if I'm going to buy a bow, do I need to buy a Matthews bow?
Well,
Or if Matthews is listening, do I need a Matthews bow?
Matthews is a great bow.
Yeah.
There's actually and it's another story we won't go into, but Matthews was started so Matt McPherson could afford to do ministry.
You're kidding me.
50% of his profits go to ministry and missions.
Really?
But there's some other bows out there that are.
So there's a lot of dudes that
Christ-based.
don't know anything about Jesus, don't care about church or the gospel.
They're funding.
and they're like, Matthews is the best, and they have no idea
it's
they're
all
funding
God,
world
it's all
missions.
God's money.
I
That's it.
love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thanks so much, Dean. And Tab family, you know what to do. Please, we haven't said this in a while, share this. Share it on your social medias. We want you to subscribe on this on all the platforms. Can you subscribe on Vimeo? Britton's not here. I'm the boomer, so do you subscribe on Vimeo?
Can.
No, we're on YouTube. Subscribe to it on YouTube.
Yep. Our
Spotify.
YouTube channel, which covers all of the Tabernacle's
That's right.
content, whether it's sermon, podcasts, services, this podcast, but also on Spotify and Apple
And the Tab app.
Podcasts.
I could listen to that silky baritone all day.
And remember that the video actually is available on Spotify as well.
Yes. So share it. I always share it. And subscribe. And then Britton, if he was here, he would say subscribe, unsubscribe, and subscribe again because algorithms are real. I don't know what that means.
Algorithms matter. They're
I didn't know
real.
what that
Yes. Yeah. And share it with a friend.
meant. Yeah.
But until next time, hopefully Britton will come back to work whenever he's done honeymooning, running 5Ks, speaking around the world,
Taking care
changing
of
lives.
kids.
Yeah, at Founder Camp. But until next time, this is me, John Vermillia, and Dean and Lord Matthew Corey Hughes. I saved the biggest one for last. Signing off.